Welcome to the Dance Reel podcast. I'm Kate Histon-Behrend. Today I'm speaking with Janelle McPherson, an ex-professional dancer with the Moulin Rouge. Janelle's story is fun, adventurous and uplifting. I also enjoy hearing about her transitions from dancer to professional dancer, and then when she decided to close the doors on dance and what she's doing now. I know you'll enjoy. Hello and welcome, Janelle.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for having me.
I would like to share with our audience how I met you and how I know you. Janelle and I live in, well, I'm not in Byron Bay at the moment. As you know, I'm in Germany, but we live in Byron Bay. And I met Janelle through a mum's group and found out that Janelle was an ex-professional dancer with the Moulin Rouge.
Yeah, very different life I am living now.
So I know you've got some wonderful tips and some stories to share with us. And today I wanted to focus on learning more about your time with the Moulin Rouge, your life transitions, and what you're doing now. So, first of all, let's start with your dance journey. How did it begin?
I'm originally a little country girl. Grew up in country Victoria. Back in the day, it was very much a little cricket town, or it was everything was centered around football and cricket. And there was two ballet schools at the time. I wonderfully fell into one of them when I was about 3 years old, and it formed my friendship groups. Yeah, and from there, I made some quite competitive dance friends that were true friends as well.
Yeah,
And
that's
they all
nice.
went to full-time school, and I had to get into full-time school the year after. I was desperate, and at the age of 13 started my full-time ballet journey. At the age of 18, I was offered a role in the Moulin Rouge. I had an agreement with my mother that I had to finish school first, so as soon as I'd finished school, I took the next available contract from that point, was on a plane, and spent 12 years working full-time and making a living as a dancer.
Beautiful. And so, what was the audition process like? And what was life when you immediately moved to Paris?
Yeah, and so further to that, I should actually add, I did start working professionally as a dancer and a model when I was still at school. And my
Mhm.
first dancer model job was when I was 14, was a Nestle TV commercial. And off the back of that, I got a little modeling gig, which was like a Japanese garden. I spent 5 hours on a swing in this beautiful environment, which made me super nauseous, but was a great first eye-opening experience to life's not so pretty all the time on the other side. And yeah, I was a showgirl for Crown Casino's 10-year anniversary, first ever showgirls there ever was in Crown Casino. And I was desperate to be a ballerina. And actually, off the back of that as well, I got a contract to go to Shanghai when I was 18, went for a weekend to Shanghai as a dancer model for Gucci. And when I was there, I was going, my gosh, I want to be a ballerina. I was actually there with a girlfriend who danced at the Australian Ballet at the same time. And she was like, oh, wow. There's this place called the Moulin Rouge. I'm going to start in 6 months. I was like, what's that? I've never heard of it. It was before the world of internet and quickly jumping on and Googling something. So it was completely through word of mouth. And the girls I was in Shanghai with actually opened my eyes to becoming a showgirl. I'd never really heard of that. And I reached out to them by internet. Yeah, got a very slow response back telling me they were auditioning about 2 weeks later in Australia by chance. I flew myself up to Brisbane, asked an auntie if I could stay with her, and I was in an audition of about between 500 and 1,000 girls. There was a lot of people there. And remember being asked as the first one to go and give my name. And I had no idea at that time what that meant. But the audition process is you kind of put into groups and you never really know what the group is. But now on reflection, I understand she's kind of grouping people together that look good together. It's not necessarily this group is a yes and this is a no. It's these people visually fit well together. My group was pretty much the whole group that started a couple of months later and then a few months after that. And I was off, packed my bags, finished school, and paid my own way, got over there on a shoestring. I'd been working in a Chinese restaurant all through my teen years on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday night for $20 a night. But I pretty much scrimped and saved, and I was the most determined teenager you've ever met in your life. I was going to be a ballerina or a dancer. I was going to travel and see the world off the back of being a dancer. I was going to find a way. And I did. Bought my own plane ticket. So they reimburse. So we'll fly you from Australia up to this much money. So you shop around, you get the best deal you can get, and you try and, you try and make it work. And then you arrive, and there's a wonderful woman called Jo, who's almost like, I call her like the favorite auntie there. She picked me up from the airport with a bunch of other girls that were arriving the same day. She drove us to our hotel room. She's English, made sure we were fine, made sure, she translated everything for us, and she gave us all the info. And she was pretty much our go-to from there on. If there's paperwork you can't understand, if you need to open a bank account, when it's time to get a rental on an apartment, you've got 4 weeks in a hotel and then you've got to find a house by that point. Yeah. So they do look after you a lot in the transition, but there's also a lot of growing up to do very quickly.
Yeah, okay. And at any point in this, were you scared? Like, what was it? What was it like? It sounded like you just went into it positively. Was there any trepidation?
Oh, yeah, I think the first time I got a lovely little freak out was also my mother was not exactly on board with me being a dancer, so it was very much if you're going to do this, you got to do it by yourself. So
Yeah.
I went over there with literally just enough money to get me to my first paycheck, which I wouldn't advise. It was pretty stressful in that sense. I was, everyone's like, let's go out for crepes and let's try it. And I'm like, yeah, no, thanks. I'll just drink my own tap water and, I have to be very, very careful, which luckily I grew up very frugally. I was brought up with not a lot of money, so that wasn't a shock to me. But Paris is really cold, like the worst cold you've ever felt in your life. And when it rains like Byron Bay kind of rain.
Mm.
And then a frost arrives and it is freezing. I learned very quickly that my Australian raincoat doesn't work over there. And I
How did
didn't,
over
it
here?
doesn't work. And everyone's like, go to H&M, it's the cheapest place, you can buy stuff for sure. And I stood there with my Australian dollar little calculator I'd saved in my pocket, and because we didn't have smartphones at the time, I couldn't figure out an exact number of how much a raincoat was going to cost me, and I just kept going, I don't think I can afford this, that this is really hard. And it was about that point I went, all right, this is kind of scary to do by yourself. But it wasn't. I'm such a always have been a go-getter. I'll give anything a shot. I don't mind being a little bit scared in those situations. I'll always find a way. So it was all right. Just carried on, got through it, worked really hard, learned that it can be really fun at the same time.
And what was the training like? So what did that involve? How many hours? And then when were the performances in relation to that?
Everyone that starts at the Moulin Rouge has to do the can-can, French can-can. That is incredibly physically challenging. It's done in a character heel as well. When you think about the physicality of the Moulin Rouge, it's on wooden floorboards,
Mm.
which in Australia, I always trained on tuckette and sprung floors. So when you actually start training full time on those floors, things like stress fractures start to creep in and injuries. So probably the first 10 days is what I would compare to military training. You're doing, I want to say about 10-hour days. I think it's between 8 and 10 hours. And it's like from the corner, ball change, kicks, ball change, kicks, ball change. Like you are going again, again. It's rote learning. It's learning how to do a jump split. It's getting so confident in cartwheels in every direction. It's figuring out if anyone can do tricks beyond that. Then also a very balletic side to the show. So you then do like a couple of hours in a very different style, and you do it again and again and again. And then at about day 10, they start to piece everything together. I think you get 1 day off a week from memory
Yeah.
throughout the rehearsal period also. But then when you're working, that's all you get. In my day, that's all you got. I think they get an extra day a month now. But you're really putting yourself through the ringer, learning how it feels to be on stage all the time. Yeah, and just getting a different kind of skill in place to what my ballet training was. You need that ballet training. You need to know your core stability, your technique. It's all got to be there. But then it's a very different style of dancing. The can-can's all in parallel. So you're working quite different muscles. Yeah, so you're just really getting that into the body. Around day 25, they pick and choose a couple of girls per night. You shadow one dancer backstage and they help you practice how to do your makeup because you do it all yourself. They give you tips and you try and copy it, especially in the time they do it. Eventually, you get used to doing a full stage face in 10 minutes max. So you're kind of just learning and watching what they're doing on the job, and then you will physically shadow them. It actually goes really fast backstage. It's a 2-hour show where you do not stop moving the entire time. It's very rare you get to sit down between numbers, and there's a staircase between the dressing room and the stage. So you're up and down those stairs about 25 times a night. There's things to be moved, there's costumes to find in different locations, and you just follow someone again, 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 until
Wow.
eventually, I think we started on, I'm pretty sure you start on a half show. I started off swinging quite a few sections of the show. So I had a lot to consume in rehearsals
Yeah.
and a lot to learn. On reflection, I now realize I should be flattered that they offered that to me. But at the time, I was like, I've got so much more to learn than everyone else. I don't just get a place, and I can't just feel secure knowing where I am on stage. This is terrifying. I used to joke about, the Russian girls would just kind of push you in the blackout, and you're like, you better know where you're walking because they're going fast and they don't care if they're going to push you out of the way. And like, you got to know where you're going, and you got to go confidently, and you have to go in pitch black, and you have to go with a big feather backpack, and there is no second to stop and think and process. You've got to be so confident in what you're doing every step of that show. That's pretty terrifying, but also
Yeah.
the best rush in the world.
Oh, wow. Incredible. Two questions from what you've just told us. What traits within you were able to actually get through that? Because that sounds like a lot. All of those skills you're learning, how has that helped you transition into the next part of your life?
See if I can remember this. So skills I found in myself, really. Um, you got to be brave. You have to be
Yeah.
brave. You have to be so strong-willed to do that job, and to get yourself there. Like, it's not an easy process to go through to
Yeah.
physically get yourself on to the other side of the world. You turn up and you have a yes attitude. I will try my best. I will do it again. If it hurts, I'm going to keep going. It's that kind of
Yeah.
attitude.
We can't do that now, though. We can't keep going if it hurts because, like, now we've got, there's so much more awareness about not pushing through pain because I'm from the
Yeah,
same era as you.
era.
I think
Yeah.
we were our age, but yeah, so we can't now. I mean, hopefully they've got. Do they have sports exercise
So
physiologists?
there's always agreements with not on site, but so the osteopath for the Paris Opera Ballet Company is the first go-to for all the Moulin Rouge dancers as well. And well,
Yeah,
it used to be, and back in the day he was brilliant. He'd kind of get you back on track and understands that you can't stop your job just because you're in a bit of pain. But it's, I mean, injury and I'm hurting, different things. It was very much like, hey, there's a way to deal with the pain. You can communicate and say, I'm really struggling dancing on this leg. Can I
yeah,
switch? Yes. We can swing you and swap you with a different person potentially to keep you going on stage, but using your body in a slightly different way. So they do work with you, definitely. But yeah, essentially what I've learned is I'm a go-getter, and I knew I was as a kid, but that really got me over there. I didn't have the stage mum pushing me in the background. I didn't have the financial support to kind of buy my way over there. I did every single thing myself to get myself over there and
yeah,
to find a world. I'm almost 6 foot tall, and I was dead set going to be a ballerina. And a lot of me going over there was an intention to audition for ballet companies in Europe that accept taller dancers once I was over there. But then once I was there, I went, I actually love the modeling industry as well. And there's a
oh,
whole world of dancer model work in Europe. So I used to go and take myself to agencies in the daytime and castings and Paris Fashion Week. I remember I bought a Vespa. I remember flying off a défilé, a catwalk show in Paris, and it was running overtime. And I was, yeah, I gotta get on stage, and they wouldn't give me the night off because there was not enough dancers available. So I was like, I can do this, I can do this. I had bright blue eyeliner, bright blue lashes. There was diamantes all over my face. I was literally in like Japanese inspired heels this high, and I was like, I gotta go. The show stopped, the catwalk of Paris Fashion Week. I jumped on my Vespa, I raced in, and I went on stage with full blue eyes, which was a big no-no at the time. I raced around the Louvre, which you can't do anymore because of all the safety bollards, but I literally went illegally around the Louvre, and I was just like, look, it's my life become. This is not normal life. Yeah, but I was always going to find a way to keep life interesting and become a dancer and pay my own way. So yeah, I actually danced full-time at the Moulin Rouge for 3 years. At that point, I had a really honest conversation with them. I was lucky enough to have two passports. My mum's Scottish, so I have a British passport and an Australian. And I said, I think I'm getting bored on stage. I was already a soloist replacement, so I'd do the soloist position for 2 weeks of the month. I was a swing for every position, for the dancer line, for every position of the nude line. They were offering me every kind of photo shoot opportunity, every tour, every interview. And I was just like, I'm not someone that's built to do the same thing every day. I'd really love to work as a replacement for you, which there's always a little pot of girls and guys that if they are short of staff, they pull upon these replacements. So typically they're working maybe 3 or 4 nights a week. Sometimes in winter, when everyone goes down and everyone's sick, they're offered work every single night of the week. Maybe when everyone's healthy, they don't get offered any work for a couple of weeks. But I wanted to do that with the agreement that then I'd do all the tours, and I knew there was quite a lot coming up. And in between, I could work as a dancer. The French government has a really nice offering for artists where if you've been on a certain kind of contract for a certain amount of time, if you choose to work as a freelancer, which is what it is, and you're not meeting the money you used to make the last year, if you've not made enough work to cover those costs. But luckily I always made my own way. So I actually, not long after, ended up moving to Barcelona with my ex-boyfriend, but I used to travel back to Paris for a tour or TV show every month. I'd rehearse and do that. And while I was there in rehearsals, I'd work on stage, which would allow them to give more people holidays at that time. I'd also do modeling jobs. I'd also do a lot of hair shows, which are dance and model kind of shows. But yeah, I actually went on to work with the Moulin Rouge for 11 and a half years all up. So 3 years full time on stage, working with a really good company, actually.
Oh, that's beautiful, Janelle. I love hearing that. I love that positive story. That's so cool.
And
And
what a lot of people don't realize is there are actually a lot of press opportunities. As some of you might have seen, they just did the Olympics. They've just done New Year's Eve live on television around the world. They did a huge show underneath the Arc de Triomphe with Philharmonic orchestras. I actually traveled the world with them. I did tours all over the world. I performed at the Hollywood Bowl with them, did some really famous TV shows. And my goal was actually always with them to do a tour that brought me back to Australia so I could combine my two worlds. And that happened the year before I stopped working with them. GH Mun, the champagne brand, built a mini Moulin Rouge in the birdcage at the Melbourne Cup one year. So they partner with a lot of big brands around the world, such as Accor, and we actually came out and performed in Australia. I did a lot of TV shows here, and I was a bit like, "Yep, I think that's me done. I think I've ticked the box." Yeah,
yeah.
so that was always the goal, to make it to that
Wow.
point, which I did.
So, how did you arrive in Byron Bay?
Yes, so transitioning to real life.
Sorry, I was going to say I really want to know about the emotional adjustment from when you
Yeah.
you left the stage, and then was there a little bit of grief after that of missing the stage? And
So I was a couple of weeks shy of my 30th birthday, and I was in a very wonderfully single stage of my life. I was really confident in that. I had actually been working in the background also with Rolls-Royce motor cars. Somehow got offered a position kind of as an extension of their marketing team, where I would be on the ground working with the marketing team with all the big events that they hold around the world. So that was kind of a little bit of a bread and butter thing I'd managed to set up for myself in the background. And just before Christmas, I knew I had one of those coming up in March, and I also had a few other modeling, dance and model jobs in early February. And I just thought, you know what, between Christmas and my birthday, there's not really going to be work. It's a quiet period. I think I want to move back to Australia, but I don't know when's the right time to do it. And I've got this work coming up, but like there was the tug of war of I don't know what I'm going to do. I was actually seeing a psychologist counselor at the time who was just this lovely mother energy that just said, I think this is what you need. I think you need to go back and remember who you are in Australia. And there's this feeling in you that you don't want to raise a family in Europe, but you also aren't ready to give this up. But what's going to happen? You're about to turn 30. What's going to happen over the next few years? What do you want to decide that for you? And I said, screw it, that's it, I'm packing up. And I bought a plane ticket for 48 hours later, packed up my life. I had 11 suitcases. But yeah, 48 hours later, I used all of the air miles that I'd stocked up over years and years of flying for a living, traveling a lot with work, and walked up to the counter and said, could I please, I've got 11 suitcases, could I please use them to pay for all this excess baggage? And she said, I can do one better. You look a little upset. Let's upgrade you to business. And for the whole trip,
oh,
that'll cover all your baggage. I got on board, and there was just this beautiful turn of events. Air host Stuart, he was like, "Oh, I used to be a dancer too. Let me look after you." And he got the chef to make this personalized, like Eiffel Tower out of chocolate and a harbour bridge. And he was like, "Your worlds are going to combine, and things are going to be amazing." And I just had this beautiful, uplifting flight home where I just felt like anything was possible. So I'd actually made up my mind to pretty much go directly to Sydney. Managed to wing a room. I think a girlfriend let me sleep on her couch for a few days. I somehow found a room to rent with a dancer friend's cousin who'd just been on The Bachelor and didn't want to live with the blokes anymore. And somehow I accidentally landed in this bachelor life where, like, you know, the Bachelorette lived across the road and the Bachelor boys would come over and tell me how good they are. It was actually A lot of positives, but I think there was a lot of negatives in that also because I landed back in Australia having social media wasn't a thing when I started my career, and you never needed it as a dancer or a model in the day. It was actually almost seen kind of shameful to rely on it to get work. So I never worked on it. I never built up a profile. And all of a sudden I'm living with this bachelor crowd that were like, well, you're no one in Australia without a following. Who are you? And it had this massive self-esteem blow where I was like, shit, I haven't done the right things to transition to Australia. And Instagram was so important then. And I was just like, this is not me. This doesn't feel like me. I actually got signed with a really great agent in Sydney, which was lovely. And they started, trying to get me little jobs. And I just kept going, I don't think this is for me anymore. I'm not feeling this pull to do this. It's not about the audience. That's not where I got my buzz anymore after all those years. I think it was backstage. I think it was having a really great relationship with dancers and musicians and living a great, interesting life with like-minded people was really where I think I got my high. And I just thought, I don't think I want to start that fresh here. I think I'd
Yeah.
rather try something else. So after working with Rolls-Royce, there was a few connections that knew that. And actually an old Moulin Rouge girlfriend who's still a dear friend, her ex-partner offered me a job to work for him, but it was in a commercial property fit-out company. And my clients I was working with were asset owners in Sydney, like literally the people that own the skyscrapers. And all of a sudden I was back in this world of high net worth individuals, but there was a whole different respect to it in Australia that I found really confronting. It's a very sexist industry in Australia. You really got to fight to be respected, and respected's a big word for anyone in that industry. It was very confronting for me going from knowing myself, knowing who I am, being very confident in myself. I've always been a shy person, but I can confidently present myself. That's fine. I've learnt skills to push myself out of my comfort zone, and I'm fine doing that. But I would just go home and go, this doesn't feel like I'm being myself anymore. I don't feel good
Mm.
about this. I was actually an event organizer, event manager for them. I would design events which would bring the right clientele to like the head office I opened for them. I had a wonderful, massive budget to deal with. I had a vision of events from my world in Europe that no one had really seen in Australia. There was concepts I was thinking of that others hadn't really thought of. And I was given an opportunity to do some really cool things. But then I was just like, this feels like I'm so disrespected and no one's really listening to me. No one's really respecting me. Actually, yeah, there was a lot of workplace bullying that was happening. I was quite openly referred to as the avatar because I was so tall and skinny at the time, had a long face. It was just like pretty horrible. Something that everyone thinks that the dancer world's pretty yuck, but that was yuck. And so I was talking to a recruiter that said, well, you've got all these personal skills. Why don't you talk to people? Why don't you come work for us for a bit? And I tried that and again just went, this is not me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But not long
That's
after
really,
that,
yeah, that's really
yeah,
terrible.
it was a really tough gig. And even when I went into recruitment, I actually stuck it out for a year because my now wonderful partner and I had decided to try and buy a little property. And once you've started doing that, you can't change your industry. So I stuck it out for a year to have a sensible, safe job. The company I was working for actually went into insolvency. It was like anything but safe. I was much safer when I was with freelance. Um, but at the time, I remember thinking, why does everyone look at me and go, she's a dancer? You know, she can't do a million things. She needs to do the same thing day after day to learn the skill. And in my head, I'm like, I learn a skill in 5 minutes. I learn a show in a day. I can pick up different skills in a minute. I have somehow learnt French and Spanish on the job. I can tell you any information you want to know about the Rolls Royce. I can, I can tell you anything about the choreographers I've worked with over the years. I can tell you anything about the hairdressers that I've worked with at L'Oreal and Wella. But somehow coming back to Australia and going back to a normal job, it was like, no, this is your job. This is your box. You stay in it. And I
So
found
it
that
sounds,
really, really difficult.
yeah, so it sounds like over in Paris with the Moulin Rouge, you had a lot more freedom, you were respected, and then over here, that reforming of identity and that respect and who am I now
Mm,
if they're not reflecting how I really feel about myself back to me as a person. Whereas in
yeah.
the Moulin Rouge, you were getting that reflected back. Like, yes, yep, you're our lead person. Yep, sure, you can. You don't have to be full time now. You can actually be on call as we need you. So you've reached that high level, and then it's like
Yeah.
starting again and having
Yeah.
to get that respect back
And
from.
yeah,
Mm,
what I'd say is I like in furthermore, I did live in quite a few countries and work freelance all over the place. And each time it was starting fresh, different energy. And I kind of thought it would work the same way back in Australia. But I found that overseas, being a go getter, saying yes to everything, trying new things, being able to achieve new things was always met with amazing, cool, let's give you another challenge. Let's further your career. This is fantastic. In Australia, it was kind of like, that's not your job. Don't do that. It was a really confronting moment for me, realizing that people almost underestimated my capabilities.
Do you think as well there's that tall poppy syndrome thing in Australia where it's like if you are actually doing really well, people want to cut you down? And especially as you were saying, being a woman in the real estate,
Yeah, commercial real estate. But I think
yeah,
yes. But I think furthermore, it's more probably people just don't get it. They don't get that you've actually done a million different jobs and you do have a million different skills and you haven't worked in one industry for 75 years, but doesn't mean you can't do it and you can't pick it up in
yeah,
a day. There's always this second guessing of like, did you really do all those things? Did you really experience all those things? Do you actually know all those people? Have you actually? Because I'd be like, yeah, cool. I can upgrade your software interest. I can,
yeah,
learn things on the job. I taught myself to code in a few days. Like it, yeah, when you've got
yeah.
that attitude that I think most dancers have of, yeah, sure, I'll give it a go. I can try anything. I can achieve anything. And then you come back to this world where it's like, no, your profile description doesn't say that you do that. So you're not capable of doing that. Like, but I am.
I don't know if all dancers have that. I don't think they all do. I think the ones that actually really do succeed, and what am I trying to say? Like make their dreams and their goals actually come true, to actualize them so that they're not just a dream. I think that is what you have, that extra bit of nous, that extra bit of like, no, I'm going to do it, that determination and backing yourself and believing in yourself even when no one else does. And that's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of people here don't really understand the freelance world. So it actually means you are actively reaching out to anyone you would like to work for, you have worked for, checking in daily, weekly. Are there any jobs on the horizon? You're organizing your own schedule, you're organizing your own paperwork, you're invoicing them, you're doing your own taxes, you're figuring out your own logistics. There were some days where I figured out, can I literally be in two countries at the same time doing two jobs in two different countries? Yes, I can find a way as long as the airlines all run on time. I would do things like that. Like there's all these extra elements to working as a freelancer in any industry that people don't really understand if they've always, had a safe, steady job. I just don't think this whole bag of skills is something that everyone can get their head around.
See, I appreciate listening to that. For me, having my dance studio when I had it for the 23-year period, I couldn't just be very good at one thing. I had to be good at everything, right? Teaching,
Yeah, yeah.
choreographing, then doing my own accounts, negotiating, getting our own studio and all of those things,
Mm.
communication, managing conflict resolution, employing staff, hiring staff,
Yeah. Yeah.
all those little things that you have to learn. But for
Yeah.
me, I realized when I moved over to Germany, the freelance thing, the reaching out thing, I
Mm.
actually don't like it. I don't like reaching
Yeah.
out. I don't like going, hey, I'm in town. I'm in Germany. Do you need a
Yeah.
dance judge? And I've had to do a bit of that. And
Mm.
I'm just like, wow, I spent from
Yeah.
19 to 42
Mm.
being in control and having the work. Like, obviously, it's different. I
Mm.
didn't have this life on the stage. I had a very small dance stage period before performing and got into teaching quite young. So I've had to really become flexible and adapt within myself and relax and let go. And people, I noticed I had this rule when I had my dance school. We have to reply and respond to someone if they've emailed within 24 hours, even if we don't have that
Yeah.
answer. I want to, I had a manager. I want to make sure that you respond within 24 hours.
Yeah.
And so over here, I find it really challenging waiting for days and days and days and sometimes weeks. It's like, but it's like, that's so rude, right? Taking like just even respond to me like, yep, cool, got your email, get back to it, or sorry, can't help you. Say no.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but all those little
Yeah.
things, because I was the one used to it being kind of
Yeah.
my way. I've had to just relax and
Yeah. And it's so the girls that and guys that did really well. So even as a dancer, you are kind of expected to do photo shoots quite often so that there's an image, a fresh image that a casting director or a production company can send out to their clients and go, this is my first pick of people that I want to use for this job. Are you happy with XYZ? Yes, great. So at the point where they send that out, they pencil you in. So you essentially can't book any other work on those dates, but it doesn't mean you've got the job yet. And then you got to hope that your photos get you the job, even though the production company has said you're the best of the best. I want this girl to be in the show. They've still got to agree on it on the other side. So you're in this little stage of limbo. And I used to be shocking at going to do photo shoots. I hated, like, when I say I was a model, I did a lot more catwalk work. And I did some little photo shoots, but it wasn't really my thing to go out and get shoots if I didn't really have to. And quite often casting directors and agents would be like, can we get an update on the photos? They need to see some fresh material. And I was actually really bad at that. I'll put my hand up and say I should have taken a bit more time and effort. And sometimes I go, wow, I wonder what could have happened. I was trying in the acting world for a while there. And I just wasn't very interested in like doing reels and like, sorry, the old fashioned, not the Instagram reels, like a personal
Yeah.
introduction of yourself as a reel, yeah,
The show
on
reel.
camera,
Yeah.
yeah, show reel. I
Yeah.
wasn't interested in doing that stuff, so I do often go, oh, if I had the tenacity and I was a bit more interested in that self promotion side, I wonder what would have happened more. But then, sorry, to continue back to your last question of what happened, after being in recruitment, it was a beautiful chain of events where I got told the company got into insolvency. I fell apart. This is supposed to be my safe job. We just signed a mortgage. What the hell am I going to do? The next day, I got a phone call from a recruiter that was like, I've got this company. It's a photography studio that needs a creative to work on set and literally direct photographers, lighting, all this kind of stuff. But they also need someone that has experience in sales that can work after the photo shoot and work one on one with the clients. Would you be interested in going in for an interview? And I was just like, oh my God, I think this is my thing. This is my two worlds combining. I get to use my brain a bit more. I get to learn new things. I get to expand my knowledge in some sense and challenge myself, but I also get to be that real hands-on creative, which I really love. So yeah, I'd kind of go from 2 hours of being on set and directing and talking feedback to makeup artists and lighting production and all that kind of stuff. And then I'd jump straight in with a different client and we'd go through their photos and go through any video that was taken. And I would offer more than was needed. I would go, hey, have you looked at this modeling agency? Look at this one. You don't need to be signed exclusively. You can sign up for this, but as soon as you get the photos, I would personally go to this agency, this agent. Don't even try to get an agency with your look. Why don't you go directly to freelance? There's websites where you can be picking up work. So I would offer them all this knowledge about the industry, but then I'd also get to work hands on as a creative on set. And that was a massive passion for mine and something I would love to do more of in the future. Yeah, after all of that, I was very pregnant throughout that stage, had a baby, COVID hit. My partner was not very happy in a business that was up for sale at the time as a coffee roaster. And I went, hey, screw it. Let's go move to Byron Bay, which is the one town in the world that I've ever felt like being a creative is really embraced. And I've always said, if I want to open a business, it's there because I think I can truly be myself. Which after being in Sydney, not really feeling like I was accepted and respected for my previous career, I just felt like this is the place for me to be. So yeah, we moved here and spent the first year looking for a location and exactly what the business was going to be. And now I'm sitting in our coffee roastery, which operates wholesale as well as a cafe space. And we welcome through a couple of hundred people face to face every day. We supply wholesale to accounts. I have a website up and going. I get to be a creative person. I get to work visually. I wish I had more cash to spend on doing visual creative things in the space. We built it with our own cash. We literally tiled the benches ourselves. I learned how to do everything. I'd never poured a cup of coffee in my life before this. All I knew is that as a freelancer, I'd sat in the best cafes I could find in every single little inch of the world that I'd traveled to. And I knew what kind of location made people feel good and what the kind of personalities that make you feel welcome in a space. And I thought, I really miss people, being face to face with people every day. So yeah, let's do it. I'll work in the cafe. I worked here pregnant as soon as I had our second baby. I put him on my chest and I got back to work. It's now my partner and I's life and we get to work together. It's been a really lovely creative outlet that I've kind of found myself in again. And I talk about who I am really openly with our customers and I feel really respected for it, which is great.
Oh, that's beautiful, Janelle. What a whole full, fulfilling life. And it goes to show that there is life after dance and you can
Yeah.
transition, and all those skills that you learn as a dancer, they will really help you in whatever you decide to move forward to, and your strengths in your, or say next life, but this life. And
Yeah.
with that, I wanted to ask, because I know we get some aspiring dancers watching,
Mhm.
competition sometimes is, well, not sometimes, a lot. It's a big part of a dancer's life, and it doesn't necessarily mean competitions as in Eisteddfods, but
Yeah.
the feeling of competing with your friends.
Yeah.
So how did you manage maintaining friendships, and then also if you're, I don't know, competing for the same role, or was there anything tricky? Did you learn anything? Do you have anything to share on that for us?
I think personally, I learned very early on, know who you are and stay in your lane of what you're good at and what you're suited to. Going to the Moulin Rouge was not my first option. I wanted to be a ballerina, but I knew that in going over there, I would actually have further opportunities to work in the ballet world as a freelancer. But I really believe in not trying to be something in the industry that you're not totally suited to. I would love to be in musical theatre. I'm a terrible singer. Really, I'm a terrible singer. I can act, I can dance, I can do a little bit of everything. I do not have projection. It's just not my thing. So yes, I'd love to be in musical theatre. Not my, it's just not the fit for me. In terms of competition in the industry, I have one particular friend that I can think of who's still one of my best friends. She lives in the UK, and we call each other a bookend because sometimes we got booked on the same job to stand side by side. We're built the
Wow.
same, we look the same, we've both got red hair. So you would think that that's competition, right? And sometimes it was, sometimes she'd get it and I wouldn't. And we actually lived together for a while. So, and we were going to the same auditions. Then we had these amazing jobs where we would be opposites and we got to be besties and we got to kind of support each other and dance together. And then occasionally I was like, double booked this job. I can't do it. I've got to give up one of them. Can I please put you forward and as someone to replace me? She's like, yeah, absolutely. We'd kind of cover each other. And I heard actually a really famous makeup artist say this before as well about competition in the industry. Makeup artists are not her competition. They're people to support you when you can't do your job correctly. If you need a sick day, you've got someone to cover you. So I think in schools, yes, definitely there can be this element of competition. And that's really tough because I think just growing up as a young teen, you don't always have the skills to understand that there's a bigger picture. You're all training for the same goal. You're not actually in the school to compete against each other. There's no one's going to win in the school. The winning is getting into the industry and getting the job if that's what you're directed at doing. If that's the end goal, focus on the end goal, and you can both do that end goal. You're not going to end up with the same job sometimes. Sometimes you're going to support each other and help each other out if you need a day off or you can't do something. So ultimately, what you see as competition is actually probably going to be the people that support you in the end.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And to not have that scarcity mindset of feeling like it's an either or. It's nice to see methods of teaching evolving as well, because in my experience, the teachers put that fear into you, and we were compared a lot to each other, which, I mean, for me, I'm against that. There's why would you do that? That's not helpful for the student in the long run, and not going to help develop their mentality to actually believe in themselves. It's always
Yeah.
looking for a threat. So that's really nice to hear. And your message today and your story has been really inspirational and uplifting, and just a gorgeous story of your beautiful, well, I don't, I want to say whirlwind, but it's not a whirlwind. Like, there's a
It's been a
whirlwind
long
element
whirlwind.
to it, but there's a lot of real good, beautiful, practical and gorgeous experience that you've had as well. So it's, wow, you've,
And actually, I'd love to further to what you just said before about the school and the
mm,
competition. I think I was very fortunate. I was very much not supported. Being a dancer, I knew the only way I could do it full time was to get a scholarship into a school. The Victorian College of the Arts and has a
yeah,
secondary school, and it's funded totally by the government. It has the best school, the best teachers. A lot of them cross over between the Australian Ballet School and Victorian College of the Arts. They're across the road from each other. But you also finish your academic work. You're offered a lot of support in other areas. If you want to go beyond being a dancer, like, it's not just you must be a ballerina and that's it. It's actually a very contemporary heavy school as well. And it's specifically for musicians, dancers, and fine arts. And I think it was actually one of the best things that ever happened in my life was to go to that school. I never felt true competition. I felt like everyone in that class, in that ballet room, was very different individuals, and we were all respected for being different individuals. One of the girls I went to school with, she was 4'9", and she's still working as a dancer, but more in TV commercials and things like that. Um, I was never going to go up against her for a job. Like, there was never this direct competition that we were treated as. And I remember teachers always speaking to me, going, "Gosh, those gorgeous long legs, they're going to take you so far, Janelle." Instead of going, "You're too tall to be a ballerina," it was like, wow, let's talk about this in such a beautiful, positive way. And that would just open my eyes to, wow, these legs can take me somewhere. Like, I'm nearly 6 foot tall. What does that mean as a dancer? Let's look at it as a positive. And I really, truly believe that that school is a fantastic, supportive place. I actually just had a little reunion. I can't believe it's been 20 years, but a few weeks ago I went to a reunion and it was the most beautiful, heartfelt experience where everyone was just like, "Gosh, I just feel like I've come home in you all." I feel like we were all kind of siblings. We went through this really intense training, musicians, dancers, professional gymnasts used to do academic there. And we're all just like, "God, I feel like I can be myself around you all and you all get it." But we've all gone different ways. There's RAF pilots, commercial pilots. There's someone that's the top of the police force. There's people still working in the arts. Someone was just on the soundtrack to Wicked recently. There's such amazing, high achieving people. But at the crux of it all, like we all held each other's hands through our adolescence. I think if you're passionate about dance, getting into a school that supports and harnesses that passion and doesn't squash it can be the best thing in the world, whether you become a professional dancer or not, or professional musician. Just knowing that passion in one direction is a fantastic thing and should be harnessed and supported in any way possible. And then you're truly building these skills where you believe in yourself and you believe in what your capabilities are. And so many of the people I went to school with are now doing amazing, good, positive things in the world because they believed in themselves. They're not dancers anymore, but they're doing good things.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love your story. It's so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing. And before we wrap up, can you show us your busy bird sign behind you?
Oh, yeah, I switched it off. But yeah, Busy Bird Coffee, which
Oh, I love it
is actually
because
named after my first son, Phoenix, who
he's friends with
uh,
my son.
is friends with your son, who came into the world the busiest little bird you've ever met in your life. So we knew it had to be somehow named after him. I now realize my mother put me into ballet as a kid because I had a lot of energy and she thought it was great babysitting as well in the evening. It was a really safe outlet for this huge amount of energy I had as a child. I used to climb everything, and my little busy bird Phoenix and my second son are exactly the same. So it's hereditary.
Oh, watch out, world.
I know, pretty much.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Janelle, for your beautiful inspirational story.
Thank you
And
for having me.
yeah, and if anyone's going to Byron Bay, you have to visit Busy Bird Coffee. It is the best coffee. I absolutely love it.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
I'm always so happy to chat to anyone that really wants to get out there in the industry. Done a little bit of mentoring with people. I just love chatting to people about who are truly passionate about trying to make it out there in the industry and opening our eyes into other ways of getting there, because it's not always as linear as some people believe in Australia.
So if anyone has any questions, how can they reach out and find you?
My Instagram, you're always welcome to DM me on there. So happy for that, either on Busybird,
Yeah.
or I'm sure you can link that somewhere.
We'll link it. Yeah, we'll link it.
You're
Yeah.
so welcome to reach out to me on there. I'll always offer advice or a little bit of guidance if I ever can, if it's ever wanted.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Janelle.
No worries. Thanks for
And
having me. This has been
we'll
lovely.
catch up soon. Thank
Yeah.
you.
See you, lovely. Bye.